Welcome back to Powerful, Not Perfect. I'm your host, Dale Betancourt, and today I have author Tiffany Velasquez sharing on her book, Alone But Not Really. Tiffany, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm excited.
I have to say, as I was thinking about your book, and I was trying to think of one word that I would use to explain to someone what your book is like. And the word that came to my mind, and I'm already getting a little bit teary-eyed already. Didn't expect that, but it's the word beautiful. And
Oh,
it's your book was, man, it brought me to tears quite a few times. And um, just because of your heart and who you are and the relationship that we've kind of developed over the years, although we're just getting a chance to kind of reconnect. But in the time that we've spent together, um, I got a glimpse at your heart. But now, when you share your book and your story, I get the opportunity to really see more of you and who you are and how beautifully God has created you to be. And for you to share that with the world is pretty amazing.
thank you. Yes. My one word that I was definitely getting the whole time I was writing it because it was hard to write, right? You read it yourself. There's a lot of tough stuff in there. And I just kept getting restoration, restoration, restoration through the whole thing.
Nice. Um, I do want to share, as we kind of go through some of the interview questions, I want to share some little snippets of your book because I feel like there's so many little powerful quotes and things that you shared, and I want to give the audience just a little glimpse, a little teaser to encourage them to go check out your book because I think it's definitely a worth read. And so the first, kind of towards the beginning of the book, you say, as I got older and was saved, I began to understand something I couldn't see back then. My parents were hurting too. They had trauma of their own from their childhoods and from the things they never talked about. Without Jesus and with alcohol as their comfort, it became a recipe for disaster. That doesn't erase the pain they caused, but it helps explain it. It helps me forgive them more freely now, knowing they were never shown a better way. I mean, to me, that again just is so beautiful. You have such a grace for your parents' imperfections, despite the pain they caused you. I'm wondering, how did you work through that? How did you come to that place?
It took a long time. I'm going to get teary eyed talking about it. I don't talk about my childhood or my relationship with my parents very openly. So, writing this book was hard in that sense. And now getting to talk about the book verbally is a whole new thing for me. Um, the Lord has done a lot of work in my mom. I mean, she is not the person who raised me. I could say easily that my mom is like one of my best friends now. I feel comfortable to talk to her about things. I have forgiven her for everything that she has done. There was a time that I'll never forget. We were sitting in a parking lot and I was an adult with my own children, married and everything. And we're just sitting in the grocery store parking lot. And she just said, I wanted to tell you I'm sorry. And just hearing it just did so much moving inside of me. And then, of course, becoming a Christian as an adult and understanding God's love and the love that He gives to us, including my parents, gave me a whole different perspective on who my parents are and the things that they went through. And at the end of the day, yeah, they did some things that they should not have done as parents, of course. But really, with all the cards that they were dealt, they were doing the best that they could. And my mom and I are in a whole different place now than when we were.
Yeah, that's beautiful. You know, I see a lot of people who have broken relationships with their parents, and I think that they think that it's just easier to go the opposite direction, that, oh, there's too much hurt and it'll never be restored. But what I see in your book is that you just continued to have hope for both of your parents. And I don't know if you still feel this for your dad or not, but it seems like you still have a little bit of hope there for him. What do you think?
I struggle with it because
Yeah.
there's the very human side of me that wants to just close all of the doors and just look away and never deal with it. And there's a certain part of me, of course, that I have to take care of myself. I can't just continue to open myself to allow somebody to hurt me again and again and again. But the word that you're using, hope, is a very accurate description because I know that the Lord can do crazy, amazing, beautiful, wonderful, healing, restorative things. I watched him do it in my mom. And I know that he could do it in my dad as well. And so that's the part that I hope for. I hope that things change for my dad. I hope that maybe one day we could have a relationship.
Yeah. Are you talking to him now or no?
No, not at this time. I'm not holding back anything. Like he's not blocked on anything, and he'll sometimes text me for holidays and whatnot. My children are welcome to text him or call him anytime. It's not like things are shut off. It's more so there's just a distance there for protection of myself.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that's healthy. We all have to have those types of boundaries. Um, um, what or Was it ever hard for you to see God the Father as good, loving, being that you had a broken relationship with your biological father?
Very much so, most of my life. If you read the book, you'll see that I grew up with this kind of distorted view of who I believed God was because I was taught one thing, but seeing a whole different view in my life. And so I had this distorted view of like, well, how could God love me? Or how could people say that he takes care of me? I don't see that. Like, all I see is pain and destruction and a whole lot of hurt by different people throughout my life. And it really took hitting rock bottom for me to see, oh, he's been there the whole time. And I just needed to look up at him and for him, allow him to meet me where I was at.
Yeah. Um, I love the first prayer in chapter 1. I think it was a very powerful prayer and it speaks to what you're just talking about. It says, Jesus, I don't want to carry distorted beliefs about you any longer. Heal the places in my heart that were shaped by fear instead of love. Show me where you were in my story, even in the silence. Help me forgive the people who didn't know how to love me well. Thank you for never leaving me, even when I didn't know you yet. Amen. Ah, man, that first prayer when I read that, first of all, it's so cool that you share your own story, but you like wrap in this devotional to like each chapter and provide like worship songs to just bring peace to soak in and things like that. How did you decide to kind of take that kind of devotional as well as your story aspect of things? What made you do that?
That was very much all God. I've always wanted to be a writer. I have in my high school yearbook, one of my teachers wrote, like, I can't wait for you to write a book one day. I wrote a play in high school. Like, that's always been something I very much love to do. And I've tried to write my story a couple times throughout my life. I was never able to finish it, though. There was always something that stopped me from writing it. And of course, now I know that was the Lord. Um, and that was because it always was filled with like bitter or resentment or more of like a drama focused book, which at the end of the day isn't going to help anybody, right? And so being able to where I am now in a place of healing and see where the Lord was throughout everything that I went through, I am not the only person in this world who has suffered. I'm not the only person in the world who has hurt, who has trauma, who has a rough childhood, who have been hurt by people or hurt by the church. So the whole point of writing the book was to be able to, yes, explain everything that I went through, but for people to read it and maybe see some familiarity in it, but really see God in their own lives, see healing in their own lives, to be able to look at it and find their own peace and to see that, like the whole title says, maybe you felt alone, but you never really were alone.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Um, you also mentioned that one of your English teachers gave you an assignment to write down three things you like about yourself. And how did that impact you?
That was really hard to do. I was at a place in my life where it talks a little bit about suicide and whatnot, and I was at an ultimate low. I didn't think that anybody cared about me, that anybody loved me, that anybody could really know me for who I was. And I talked a little bit in there about like how I got to the point of not wanting to commit suicide. And it was a wonderful conversation from somebody I didn't expect. Somebody will just have to read the book to see what happened. Um, and so I didn't know who to reach out to. And in all honesty, I didn't even really get along with that teacher that much, which is probably what made it comfortable enough for me to reach out to her, because she wasn't somebody that I was very close with. And I just said, I need help. I don't know what to do. I hate myself. And so she gave me that assignment. You need to write three things about yourself. You can't repeat it. It's going to be hard. It's going to feel forced. Just do it. And at first, it was things like, okay, I guess I like my eye color, like very surface level things. And the more I started to do it each day, I don't want to say it got a little easier. It just became a little bit more of a habit. And so then after a couple weeks, it was like, well, maybe I like my laugh. And then after a couple months, it was, well, maybe I like the way that I surprise my friend with gifts. And so I started to see things in myself that I liked, of course, that now I know are God given things, but it took a lot of work, and she genuinely did save my life at that time in my life.
Wow. It's interesting. I mean, to me that just little practice of writing down those things, it really stood out, and that's why I asked that question. Do you still have any sort of journaling practice that you do or anything like that?
They change depending on the season of my life. Sometimes I'm writing down prayers each night. Sometimes I call it my brain dump, just getting things out. Sometimes I'm writing down prayer requests, or I'm writing down what I got out of the Bible that day. Generally, yes, I'm writing something every day, but it depending on what season of my life, and it'll look a little bit different.
Yeah. I have found it's funny when I read through my journals in the past and I read through it, and it's weird how sometimes you go, wow, like I can't believe I wrote that. Because I feel like, when it's all up in our head, it's just all kind of jumbled around. But when you really put pen to, paper, and you start to write down those prayers and you start to write down, those beliefs about, who God says you are. And, I found it really helpful. A friend had told me to write down I am statements.
Mm-hmm.
I am a good dad. I am a child of God. I am a leader. And even things that are, you know, kind of, even if you aren't them now, to speak them out because you'll step into that. And so I loved that story about your English teacher and how it impacted you. Um, there's a very powerful truth that you write in your book that I believe is going to heal a lot of people. And I'm curious how you learned this. So you said, your identity is not defined by someone else's brokenness. Just because someone couldn't love you well doesn't mean you're unlovable. God sees every injustice, every false accusation, and every tear. He is a father who doesn't project pain onto you. Instead, he heals you. And in him, there is always safety, truth, and love that cannot be taken away.
I did a lot of years of therapy.
I was curious. I was going to ask you whether you had any sort of counselors or people in your life that were, um, a big impact in your healing process.
Yeah, I'm a big advocate for therapy. I've encouraged other family members throughout the years to get to get therapy as well, um, just because I know how much it impacted me. Um, in my childhood, I had non-Christian therapists, and they kind of became a little safe place for me. And then, of course, I had people at school that were like working in the office that I trusted as I got older that became, a point of connection for me to be able to talk about things. And then as an adult, eventually I did find out, oh, hey, there's Christian counselors. And so ended up getting one for myself. And that's where a lot of healing came through, because they could come from a place of what I was really trying to get to, the root cause of things, and really find where the healing is that I was looking for.
Hmm. That's awesome. One of the devotionals, I think the questions are great, by the way, and I think it's so important, for people not to just read them and as a rhetorical question and then move on, like to actually, it's a quick read book, but to take the time to really answer the answer the questions because that's where the healing happens,
Yeah.
right? And so one of the devotionals you ask, where did you search for identity in your teen years? And this is a really interesting question because, and I think a lot of times when people go through therapy and things like that, all of it goes back to our childhood, right? What what ideas did we learn and what things did we believe about ourselves and how is that what are we telling ourselves now because of our past,
Mm-hmm.
right? And um, and so I'm wondering for someone who maybe is not as in touch with their story or as um, not as good at reflecting back, how would you suggest exploring this question?
Yeah. You could think about, what did people say to you or about you?
Mm,
Because we take those things in like little sponges. What people say about us to our face or even behind our back that we learn about, we kind of carry those things throughout our life. Um, I mean, we can choose to let those go when there's healing involved, but when we're kids and teenagers, it's really hard for us to understand what it means to let those things go. So, just starting with, what did people say about me or say to me, can be a great just starting point for you if you're unsure how to figure out, where did my identifying factors come from as a teen or as a kid or even as a young adult. You're still doing a lot of mental growing as a young adult. And if you're past that point, that's wonderful. So then you can start thinking about, like, well, what do I think about myself at that age? What was I telling myself? How did I feel about myself? And if that's a little difficult, okay, well, when I was getting ready and I look at myself in the mirror, what did I believe about myself? Did I believe that I looked good? Did I believe that I was smart when I was taking a test? So you can just start with like basic little things and then build from there.
hmm. Yeah, cool. Thanks for sharing that. Um, so you touched a little bit earlier on habits, and um, I know you had mentioned in your book that you went through a period of drinking regularly. And it was a little bit hard to follow the kind of the timeline as far as which age you were at and things like that. So when did that start for you?
I started kind of experimenting with alcohol as early as high school. I had friends who would bring it on the bus. I clearly had access to it in my own home. The cabinets were well stocked. Um, I wasn't consistently drinking in high school. I was more so just trying to figure it out. And so as a young adult, I that was when I really started to drink, and it was because I learned what my parents learned. I learned that if I drink enough, I don't have to face things. And so it just gradually got worse and worse. And then I also learned, oh, people like to drink together. And so it became almost a sense of like identity and community for me. Like my friends drink, so I drink. I'm going out, I'm drinking. And then I liked the way that it made me feel because, like I said, I didn't have to deal with things. So then it became well, I could even drink by myself because then I don't have to worry or think about things even when I'm by myself.
How long did that go on for you?
Until a little after my 21st birthday. My 21st birthday was oh, easily one of the worst nights of my life.
Mm.
And I, at that point, would could call myself an alcoholic because I couldn't go so many days without it. And it was a source of how I handled things. And so after my 21st birthday, I was already kind of talking to Robert as a friend, and he was helping me kind of figure things out and whatnot. And you'll learn in the book um, how I ended up letting go of that and being able to just not get to a point of drinking at all.
Yeah. Do you think anyone can have a healthy relationship with alcohol?
Yes, I do now. My husband and I got to a point where we went to a wedding in our mid 30s, maybe. Everybody was, taking out the champagne to do their toasts and whatnot. And we had not had a drink for years and years and years. And we decided, you know what? This is a safe place. We're in a safe place. We're healthy. There's no reason we can't have one drink to celebrate with our friends.
Hmm.
So now, maybe a couple times a year, we have a drink in a social atmosphere, and it's just like a drink, and we're totally fine with that. Now, do I think everybody can have a healthy relationship with alcohol? No.
That's a
But
good point.
do I think people can get from an unhealthy to a healthy place? Yes.
Yeah, I think that that's a good point. I think people don't think about that enough, right? Everyone wants to say either yes, you can have a healthy or no, you can't. But I think the key that you just said was not everyone
Yeah,
can have a healthy because we all have pasts. We all have things that have been passed down to us, right? And some of us, some people are going to struggle more than others, and some people are just can't do it, right?
yeah,
Um, and so I think that that is so important to be self-aware enough to know, can I do this healthfully, right? For my own personal well-being, for my family, for my relationship with God, right? And so it's something I'm kind of exploring right now. I had gotten into a couple years of cocktail making, and it was fun and things like that. But I realize now it was a kind of a distraction, you know,
mm,
and it um, did get in the way of being able to get up early and spend time with God because I was sleeping in, you know, and so I don't want to do anything, I don't want to have any habits now that are going to like crush my energy, you know,
right.
to where I'm sleeping in and not spending time with God in the morning because that's so important to me. And so I'm constantly evaluating, like you said, is this a safe place? Is this the right time? Okay, how often? I think that those are all important things for people to be thinking about.
Definitely. I saw that you've been trying some non-alcoholic fun drinks. So I think that's cool that you're sharing that part of your story right now too, where you're at in a season of life.
Yeah, I never thought that I would actually drink an alcoholic beer. But actually, the one that my brother had suggested to me was surprisingly refreshing. Um, so you talk about a time where you and Robert, or when Robert was in a tow truck company and you guys barely saw each other. You guys were just surviving. How do you suggest people who are just surviving step out of just surviving?
Um, I'm actually in the middle of my one of my next blog posts about this because our anniversary is getting ready to come up at the end of August. We'll be married for 17 years now, and it didn't come without its trials and tribulations for sure. So if you're in a period where it is hard to have that connection in your marriage, because we did go through another period as well later on in our marriage, but it was different because we understood how to find that connection at that point. So for us, it looked like he was FaceTiming me at night, even though we were very far apart because he was a wildland firefighter at that point later on in his life. Um, but we could see each other's faces. We could talk about our day. I could brush my teeth and he could wash his face. And sometimes it looked like I would send him a picture in the morning of me drinking my coffee, like, thinking of you, wish you were here. Or he would send me a silly picture that he saw online. So it doesn't have to be like, oh my gosh, we need to find time to drive out there and have a date and plan this and do this. Just moments to find connection of, I'm thinking about you, you're important to me. That can go a long way.
Yeah, it's amazing how technology has helped with that. I feel
Oh,
like,
for sure.
FaceTime makes a big difference as far as, being able to connect, see someone. Even I had a friend who had from Belgium who messaged me and she did a voice message and it
Mm-hmm.
was just so different and so nice to just hear her voice versus just, get a text message or something like that.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. I love that. Um, You also mentioned a time where you got really focused into working out to heal what you weren't getting from Robert. And I was trying to track whether that was a, like, if the working out was just another vice to help distract you, or if it was actually, even though it was healthier than alcohol, or if it was something that was not necessarily a vice, but something that you were just doing for yourself to help grow you, or so what was that for you?
I think it honestly did start out as a vice. It did start out as I need a distraction because I'm angry. I'm spending way too much alone. I feel like my marriage is crumbling. I need control of something. And so I started working out, learned how to eat healthier. I lost a significant amount of weight. And in that, learning how to take care of myself, yes, it started as this I just need control of something and it started as a vice, but learning how to take care of myself was very healing in itself in not relying on somebody else to take care of me. I didn't realize up to that point, I always wanted somebody to take care of me. And that's what I was looking for from my parents and my friends, and then ultimately my marriage. And it was very important for me to learn that I could do it myself.
Yeah, I found that the times where I'm working out, I feel the most mentally strong.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a lot of those internal voices or ruminating or things like that, like when you start to work out, like you start to get, like, your brain does something weird where you just start to get more clarity, you feel more positive, you sleep better, you know, and I feel like the church doesn't speak about working out enough, it's such an important thing because we're all connected, our body, mind, spirit, right? And if you're not trying to grow or feeding all of those different areas, then you're not going to get the best outcome.
Right.
You're not going to reach those goals if you're neglecting one of those. Um, so uh, one thing that I noticed through your book is you have a deep sense of connection with God through worship.
Music in general has always been something that's been very healing for me. Like as a child going to my grandparents' church, I loved all of the hymns. It just kind of calmed my mind and just gave me a little bit of peace. And then when I was um, a teenager and then a young adult, it wasn't Christian music, but it was a way for me to find a way to release emotion. I could
Mm,
release anger or express the loneliness that I was feeling through music, listening to different artists or, trying to write my own songs and whatnot. And so then when I did finally become a Christian myself and start my walk with God, worship music just naturally was a way for me to really connect with him because music was already such a big part of my life. So when I turn on my worship music and I close my eyes, I can't see anything around me, I can't feel anything around me. It's literally just me sitting at the feet of Jesus.
nice. How did you decide which worship songs you're gonna put in your devotionals?
There was a couple where I was like, I had to really think about it. And then there was some that just came naturally. My brain is always, some people it's movie quotes, some people it's, things that people have said to them. Sometimes for people it's like commercials, the thing that just kind of lives in your head. For me, it's music. People will say something and a song just will come to my mind. And so that naturally came pretty easy for a few of the chapters. A couple of the chapters, I had to really sit there and think about it though, and like listen to a few different like worship stations and then be like, oh, that one makes sense.
Just to make sure it connected with the theme,
Yes.
basically. So, do you have an all-time favorite worship song or artist or band?
There is no way I could pick one. If you gave me like a genre, I could be like, yeah, I probably like that one. Like if we're talking about hymns, because that was so important to me when I was younger, Nothing But the Blood is like instant connection for me. I'll start crying.
That's awesome. I deeply love music too. I'm constantly making playlists and things like that. So you might see that on my Instagram feed too, where I'm trying to post different ones. But after a while, sometimes you listen to the same ones over and over, and you're like, okay, I got to start making new ones. But I do like making my own because I feel like when you just take what you know they give you, then it's like, oh, these aren't exactly what I was looking for.
Yeah.
Um, one of the things you mention is when the Lord is doing his work, that is when the enemy tries to do his best work. How do you recognize an attack from the enemy?
When you are doing something that God is asking you to do, just naturally things are gonna feel like they're falling apart from different areas of your life. Um, for example, I just launched the book and people are talking about it. I get the privilege of being a guest on your podcast, and my car wants to like die on me, and it's my only mode of transportation. And I honestly don't have like a big savings account to just, oh, let me fix it real quick. And it's a transmission issue, of course.
Oh,
So just like praying through those things and continuing to do what God tells you to do. And of course, the enemy is not going to win. Like we'll be able to overcome foes. My car situation will be fine. I'll either be able to fix it or get a new car or whatever. I'm not stressed about it. But things will come after you, so to
yeah,
speak, when you're doing what you're supposed to be doing.
yeah, definitely. Um, there's another quote you have here where you say, "We were learning that peace isn't the absence of pain, it's the presence of Jesus in the pain."
Even if there was nothing going on, right? If my family was great and finances were great, everything was perfect. We live in a broken world. Pain is naturally going to happen, whether something happens to your body, a family member, death is part of our world. Somebody is eventually going to pass away in our lives. But just because those, I don't want to call them bad things, but just because those things are happening doesn't mean that Jesus isn't there. And so finding that connection with him, whether it's through reading your Bible, through quiet time, through worship, through prayer, that's where you're going to find your peace, even when all the other chaos is happening.
Yeah, so good. I do love that. It was funny that part three of your book is called Rooted, Not Perfect, which is very similar to my podcast, Powerful, Not Perfect. It's kind
Yeah.
of interesting reading that. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. So you quote Colossians 2:7, and it says, "Let your roots grow down into him, and let your lives be built on him. Then your faith will grow strong in the truth you were taught." How does that scripture speak to you?
That whole reference, or I should say that example, is used throughout the Bible so many times. It talks about roots and fruits and plants and all. I actually have an olive branch tattooed on the side of my face because it's so important to me. I belonged to a young adults group at one point that was called Roots.
Yeah.
And it's basically just talking about, right, when we have our foundation of being in the presence of the Lord and spending time with Him and drawing close to Him, then the other stuff doesn't matter so much. And our relationship with the Lord is naturally going to grow. Just like any relationship, you spend time with somebody and you get to know somebody, your relationship will grow. The same thing with God. We spend time with Him and get to know Him and allow Him to know the inner parts of us. He already knows, but He wants us to allow Him to be able to do it.
Yeah. Faith isn't something we choose once, it's something we commit to every single day. When we said yes to God's call to foster and adopt, we thought the hard part would be saying yes. But we quickly learned that it's often harder to keep saying yes when things get tough. What made you continue to say yes?
In that specific situation, just knowing the need was what kept us saying yes, because there are so many families that need help. There are so many um, this one's hard for me because it's very close to my heart. I've got my two adopted children, and I have some views on the foster care system and the adoptive world and how things get glamorized. And so the Lord is doing a lot of work on me on how I speak about these things.
Mhm.
But the need of biological moms and dads that get put through the system and the kids that get put through the system, even through reunification, there's still trauma that happens in all of those things.
Mhm.
And there needs to be more people to step up and walk them through that with grace and walk them through that with love and compassion and kindness, to be what Jesus wants us to be his hands and his feet, and to take care of these families that really need help. And even if reunification doesn't happen, because it doesn't happen every time, even though that's the main goal, to be able to still show grace and compassion and kindness to not only the children, but to those parents as well.
Mhm. And so you have fully adopted your kids, correct? Yeah.
Yes, they officially were adopted in 2020 in the middle of all of the chaos of the world. We didn't even get to go into the courts. We just got a phone call that was like, hey, it's final. We didn't even get Zoom. It was like one of the first adoptions when all of everything was shut down. So it was just a phone call. Hey, done. Congratulations.
Wow. What a crazy time, right?
Yep.
Um, and you mentioned that one of the hardest parts of being a parent is you really learn what your defaults and patterns and triggers are. How did kids bring some of those things to the surface for you?
I had to do a lot of reflection and a whole lot of prayer when I officially became a parent to both of my kids, because kids are kids, right? They push buttons. And I was learning that some of my natural responses that I were having was things that my parents had done, um, like an instant response of anger or um, wanting to raise my voice. And those are not things that I want to express to somebody that I love by any means. So I had to really learn or unlearn those things, so to speak. I had to be able to identify what they were and pray and work through the Lord on how to cut those ties. those generational curses that I was carrying. So that way they have something different. So I can parent differently. So things can look different for them.
Hmm. Yeah, parenting's no joke, right?
Ew.
But I do love that like you said, it helps us grow as individuals, right? I mean, it's one of the hardest things, but one of the best things. And that's really what, I'm trying to highlight with my podcast is that, a lot of us want to go towards comfort, and sometimes the hard things are the best things. They actually help us to grow the most, right? And it's easy to take comfort or go the easy route, but really, I mean, we can only receive as much love as we're willing to give too, right? And
Yeah.
so, if you don't open your heart up, then you're never really going to experience the full love that God has for you. And so, um, I I mean, kudos to you guys for adopting. I think that is amazing. I love hearing your story about that. Um, do you think you're going to write more on that at all, or do you have any other plans to write more on any other topics?
I'm definitely writing on more topics. I'm already working on my second one, which is strictly just a devotional, just a Bible study. It's 6 weeks, so you can do it by yourself or you can do it in a group. And then I'm figuring out what the next one's going to be. I know the topic, and it's one that I'm really wrestling with. I don't want to write it, just like I didn't want to write my first one, which means I'm going to have to. And that one's going to be on infertility, which is it's a hard one for anybody that even remotely goes through it.
Yeah.
Adoption is somewhere back there in the back of the mind, but it's very much like my first one, where if I was trying to write my story younger, it was filled with a lot of bitterness and anger, and so it didn't make sense to write it at the time. And like I mentioned, my views on adoption and the foster care system are not the most pleasant, and so wrestling with the Lord on if that's going to end up on paper, that it's not going to come out that way.
Yeah. How long did it take you to write this one from when you decided, okay, I'm gonna write this book to finish, basically?
When I actually said, okay, fine, I'll write it, and I started writing it down, it took me 2 months to finish it.
Wow.
It was because I finally got out of my way and just got it all down.
And were you writing each day, or what were you doing?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, sometimes it would be late at night. I would just be sitting in bed writing. Sometimes it looked like my kids were at an event, so I'd find a local library to write in, or if they were at taekwondo or jujitsu, I would bring my laptop and connect it to my phone and put in the car and type it out.
Yeah. I'm wondering, how does someone transition from lukewarm Christian living to living fully for Jesus? Because I see that in your story and how you have grown, and I think you mentioned that as well. I'm just wondering, how do you do that?
I think this is something that the Western world really struggles with, like being a lukewarm Christian, or there was another word that just popped up in my head that left me now, but surface level, being a surface level Christian, right? We go to church on Sunday, we talk about God, sometimes we'll pray before dinner. We're just doing the bare necessities. I think one of the biggest things that can help you transition from just doing what is like required of you to stepping into an actual relationship, community.
Hmm.
That's how you and I met, was through Epic Life, and community made a big difference for
Yeah.
me. Being able to surround myself with other people that understood God and understood different parts of what I was needing, and being able to have a safe place to talk about different things. So it could be meeting somebody new at church, it could be getting part of a small group, it could be finding a mentor, anything to start that little bit of community is going to be a step in the right direction.
Yeah. I mean, we all desire connection, right?
Yeah.
So I think that that is a great way to get connected, and learn from others and grow together. So, well, Tiffany, I am so excited for your book. I know it's going to bless a lot of people. I did share this story with you already, but I wanted to share it with the audience because it was just such a powerful story for me as far as how God's using your book already. And that was just as I'm reading your book, going through it, there's one day I'm driving home and I see this young girl in her 20s and she's just walking and she's just bawling her eyes out, and it's not like a very convenient place for me to turn around. I'm like coming over the freeway, but I'm like, okay, something is obviously wrong, and so I need to I feel called to check on this girl. And um and so I turn around and roll down my window and I'm just like, "Hey, are you okay?" And she's just like, "No, I've been trying to get home for several hours. I got on the wrong bus." Um, and so I'm like, "Okay, like if you want, I'll give you a ride, wherever you need to go." And um, so, I must have looked safe enough because she was willing to hop in the car. Um, I was coming from work, so I was all in my like collar shirt and everything like that. And she, she just opens up to me on the drive, and I just start and I probe a little bit, oh, where do you work and all of this, and she's says, that she got a DUI and her car was taken away and she's somewhat homeless and she kind of lives with a girlfriend and her mom and but it sounds like that's not really where she's planning to reside or anything, but just that she's in a really rough place, and the Lord just prompts me to share your book because some commonalities that I was hearing in her story with your story. And I'm just like, I feel like this can heal this girl. Like I feel like there's like God's love can be shared through your book, um, to heal some places that she needs healing. And so I asked her, I'm like, would you read this book that I've been reading? Because I feel like it would bring some healing to your situation. And I share with her a little bit about the book, and she's like, "Yeah, I guess if you'll send it to me, I'll read it," And so I'm like, "Cool." So I get her address, and you helped with sending it over to her. I haven't heard from her yet, but I am excited. I did text her today to say, "Hey, did you get the book?" Because she did text me after I had dropped her off, and she said, "Would it be okay if I share my thoughts about the book after I read it?"
Oh, nice.
So to me, that meant she's going to read it,
Yeah,
And so I'm excited to see what God's going to do through your book and through your testimony and your story.
I love that. It was just answered prayers because when I was getting ready to finish it and like, okay, I'm going to publish it, I'm going to let it go. My prayer every day has been, Lord, put it in the hands of those who need it. And so I think that happened like before I even had published it, you called me and it was like already answering the prayers that we were praying for. So that's amazing. And hopefully she gets it soon. It did take a little bit for the book to come in, but I hope it helps her for sure.
Cool. Well, thank you again, Tiffany, so much. Thank you for sharing your very vulnerable, beautiful story with the world, and I know it's going to bless a lot of people.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.